Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm the gnarly gnome. This is Cincy Brewcast. It's the voice of Cincy Craft. There's this whole thing. I keep hearing people talk about, I listen to a lot of podcasts about podcasting, and so they're always telling you what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. And one of the things they always say, like radio, that you're not supposed to talk like that you're talking to multiple people. You're supposed to talk like you're talking to one person, the person that's sitting in their car listening to you. And I always start the show off with, ladies and gentlemen, boy, like I'm talking to this big crowd of people. And so every time I do it now, it's in my head. I'm like, I should probably say something different at the beginning of the show, but that's really hard to do after a very long time.
I didn't know we were getting a gnarly gnome rant second to one into the show.
That's what happens when you don't make a podcast for like a month. You have lots of things to say. You guys just go sit over there for a minute, and I have some things I need to talk about.
Oh boy.
Welcome to the show, guys. This is a cool one. The last time that we were here at Wandering Monsters out in Anderson was pre-construction. We were sitting in the shell of what was left of the Game, which was the bar that was here before. I guess not here. The room that we're sitting in was a separate thing, but and it looked very different than it does today. Hopefully, everybody that listens to this has been out here already, and so can kind of visualize in their head what this place is. But if not, we'll kind of run through everything and give you everybody a good picture of it. Introduce yourselves, tell people what you do here, and what your favorite movie is.
Oof. I'm Zach. I am our head brewer. I make beer, and my favorite movie.
You don't actually have to answer it if you. I've started doing it just because it throws people off.
It did. Success. Well done. Office Space.
That's a good one. That's a good pick. It also it's hard to choose a favorite movie because there's movies that I've watched a ton of times. Does that make it my favorite, or then there's movies that I've only seen a handful of times, but they're really good movies. So how do you understand what the favorite is? But
I like watchability, especially in that genre, comedy, something I can go back to over and over again.
A movie that you can always just put on, and it can be in the background, or you can watch it. Or I get that.
Jason Brewer, founder. I don't really have a title, but I like to think that I'm the bird dog of the group, that if people need stuff done, I get it done. And I would say my favorite movie is Tommy Boy.
Ooh,
because I quote it once every day to every other day.
That's a good one. Ooh, I wonder what my most quoted movie is, too.
That's when you said favorite movie, that's what I thought of. I was like, what do I reference the most?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to have to make a list over the next couple days and try to figure all this out.
Just write down everything you say and then check against movie quotes.
I just could constantly record myself for a day and then go back and listen to it, because otherwise I won't be able to figure it out. Welcome to the show, guys. Let's start real simple with this. If you can kind of explain Wandering Monsters in kind of a quick, concise little sentence or a couple sentences to explain to people what the whole idea of this is, because there's a lot of different things going on with this place.
Yeah, we're a craft brewery that has a kitchen that serves barbecue and also has duck pen bowling on site for families and patrons and guests to enjoy.
It's extremely kind of a family-friendly type of place, which is increasingly more and more what it seems like people are just desperate for out of their craft breweries. Not that people don't like going to Applebee's, but they don't really want to go to Applebee's. They want to have that spot that they can kind of latch onto on a personal level, that is their space, that you can go, you can eat, you can go hang out with or without your kids. There's something to do. And you guys definitely nailed that here.
Thank you. Yeah, family-friendly and groups of friends, too. Grabbing a couple beers with your friends to watch a game or to just compete and play duck pen against each other is another aspect to what we have here, too.
Right. Which, if anybody's not familiar with duck pen bowling, it's like tiny bowling. It's smaller lanes, smaller ball, smaller pins, just tiny bowling.
And you get to keep your shoes on, so that's the most important part.
Do you have to? Can you play barefoot? Is that a rule?
No, you cannot. For the record,
it is, to me. It's probably the perfect kind of drinking bowling. It seems like it goes faster. It's less. People don't take it as seriously. I assume that there are people that take it very seriously. There's probably all kinds of leagues and stuff, right?
There is a professional league, and to compare it to regular bowling, you know what the perfect score in regular bowling is?
300.
It's 300.
Right.
Do you know what the average professional duck pin bowler's bowling score is?
There's no way I'm going to guess
Take
that.
a guess.
250.
It is a 154.9.
Oh, wow.
That is the top.
So it's more difficult?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You can't get. There's not enough lanes to get the motion of the ball, like the velocity of the ball, to make them all knock down, or some science stuff.
I wouldn't have guessed
makes
that.
it more difficult. Yeah.
I would have assumed the opposite, that it would be easier.
Yeah,
because
with the strings, the
yeah.
strings can catch each other too. So there's a couple different aspects, but
You learned something new.
yeah. And I've also bowled. My top score is a 155, so I can say I bowled higher than the best professionals average. So just saying.
Do you get a lot of like very serious duck pin people here? Like, do they travel around to go experience the new duck pin lanes that exist, or
We haven't had anyone bring their own ball in yet.
That
And
was
I
my
would
bad.
imagine
That was where I was going
I would
with this.
imagine that would be the telltale sign.
just a tiny little bowling bag?
We are going to have duck pin league night on Monday nights, and we say it's a fun league, but when you add competition to something, there's always the people that show up that are super serious. So we'll see if that happens on.
Yeah,
Mondays.
but it's there's a lot of people that join bowling leagues just to get out of the house and find something to do with their friends, or dart leagues, things like that get them out to their local bar or whatever, just to hang out and like, oh, I have to go, honey. It's they're counting on me. It's my team.
It's a league night.
It's a league night. Gotta go. Let's start things off before we dive into kind of the story of how we got here. Let's drink a beer, because it is a craft beer
From
podcast.
the beer fridge.
This one here,
Yep, just this order.
gotcha. And this one is Bossy.
Bossy. Don't look at my handwriting.
Yeah, you clearly are not the one that wrote things on the.
I don't work
the
behind the
labels.
bar for that reason.
Tell me about this beer.
Yeah, Bossy is kind of our ode to one of the most popular beers in the Midwest. Before we opened, some of us took a trip up into the Chicago and Wisconsin area, see some friends in the industry, brew some beer. And while we were in, Wisconsin, we had quite a bit of this beer. So we made something similar to it. We thought our community would really enjoy. So it's a light beer.
Is this a cream ale or a farmhouse ale?
It depends on who you ask.
What is spotted cow? Is it a cream ale or a
That's the
farmhouse?
question.
Nobody knows.
So yeah, it's light, it's crisp, it's very drinkable. Got a little bit of fruit ester from a Kolsch yeast, but ultimately we put it on and it became our fastest selling beer almost immediately.
It satisfies that light beer kind of craving, especially when it's hot outside and humid, like it's been off and on recently, and so it satisfies that. But then there's also this kind of like a little bit bigger body to it, and kind of a fuller kind of personality that makes it so that I can sit inside at the bar and still sit here and sip this and kind of enjoy what the beer is and kind of take a journey through the glass, which sometimes you don't get as much with the lighter beers that everybody seems to desire to make these days.
Yeah, that's what we're going for. Every time I go up to Wisconsin, I bring home 2 to 3 cases of spotted cow and 2 women. And when Zach and I were getting this project off the ground, I asked him about making something like spotted cow, and we think we've got pretty close. It's obviously not the same thing, but we tip our hat back to them and call it a Wisconsin ale.
Right.
So we continue calling it a Wisconsin ale until it's a thing. Maybe that'll be our thing. It's Wisconsin ale.
Should it be Wisconsin style ale? Is that a thing that we care about?
Does it have to be made in Wisconsin?
There's one brewery making a Wisconsin ale right now, so I don't think that we need to get that specific.
Do this is kind of going down a rabbit hole way early in the show, but do you care about stuff like that? Like I know that there are some things that are I guess legally protected in theory. Tequila, one of them, you can't make tequila unless you're in a certain region of Mexico. But even when it comes to beer, there are some people that are really crazy about the term lambic. You can't use lambic because it's a protected thing. But nobody cares about a Pilsner, for instance, which is the same exact idea that it's from this region and it's this specific thing. But do you guys care about that at all? Is that something that...
I don't think so. I think when you come to a place like this, you're not looking... If you see Kolsch on the menu and it doesn't say Kolsch style, I don't think anybody's like, ooh, I wonder if they imported that from Cologne. No. It's just our beer.
Right. Well, I mean, that's kind of been my stance, but I feel that way about kind of all of it. As long as you're sticking to like the process and the ingredients that make that thing, I don't understand why people get all upset about it. But even lambic, when I said that, I saw you kind of I assume that you said, of course, right?
Yeah.
Like, can you make a lambic in the United States?
It takes a long time, so maybe.
Sure.
I mean, what did Rivertown call theirs?
They definitely called it a lambic,
Yeah.
and then I believe they might have even copyrighted like American lambic or something like that. I can't remember. It's been a while. Again, if you're sticking to the ingredients and the process, I don't understand why people
For sure,
get
beers.
up and
There's too much else to worry about going on here to worry about the style definition that you're putting out.
There's a lot of things to worry about, especially in the industry right now, which we'll talk about. But I want to get kind of the story how you guys ended up here, and I know we've talked to Jason on the show several times, and we've kind of here and there kind of piece your story together. But have you been on the show before?
I don't think so.
Let's dive into kind of your road to Wandering Monsters. How'd you get into the industry? Why'd you get into the industry, and how'd you get here?
Sure. So back in college, got into beer pretty quickly. Went to a lot of pint nights with my friends, trying to discover craft beer. Started home brewing.
Where'd you go to college?
I'm sorry, I went to college at University of Kentucky in Lexington. Spent a lot of Wednesday nights at Pazzo's, getting free glassware. So, but got into home brewing. Got an accounting degree and pretty quickly realized that that's not where I wanted to spend my life, was in an office. So I ended up getting a job with West 6th doing sales up here in the Cincinnati area. And that's where I initially met Jason and a lot of other people in the industry
Right.
that I've been friends with for years now. A little bit of sales got me introduced to Braxton and the Rouses. They asked me if I wanted to do some sales for them, and I said no. But if you need a brewer, let me know. And they did. So they took a chance on me, and I brewed there for 7.5 years, something like that. And
At Labs, right?
yeah, so the first year I was in Covington, and then we took over that space in the back of Party Source, and I moved over there as the lead innovation brewer. So for 6 years, I just brewed kind of whatever I wanted, and it was a lot of fun, and it was a great learning experience. So after a long time of that, Jason kind of hooked up with me and was like, I'm doing something. Do you want to be a part of it? And it was it felt like the right time. And I'm just really excited about what his vision was and how it matched with my vision. And and here we are making some fun beer in a small space and serving great food and hopefully making a lot of people happy.
What is the difference in brewing at a place like Braxton, especially with the Labs thing, where it's kind of tucked away. It's part of the brand, but not highlighted in the same way that Covington is. Brewing somewhere like that, and then you come in here where everything, the spotlight is on here in one way, but then in another way, it's also a brew pub. There's lots of other aspects to it. You know, there's some people that walk in here that just don't give two shits about the beer. They don't even realize it's a brewery. You know, how to talk about the difference between those that kind of that.
Yeah, my day to day honestly isn't terribly different. You know, I'm doing a lot of the same things that I was doing for years at Braxton, but here, everything I do is kind of like, you know, the entirety of our catalog, and that's exciting for me. Little added pressure, but. It's really cool to feel like everything I do matters a lot.
Is there more freedom or less freedom in something like that?
It kind of goes both ways. Being a part of Braxton, we had, you know, so much of our revenue came from things that I had nothing to do with, but that revenue also allowed me to experiment more and
Right.
take chances. Here, we don't have quite that same thing, but I have a lot more encouragement, I think, to do out-of-the-box things, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And so I think we're still equally, if not more, creative here than I was there. It's just a little different.
That makes sense.
And if it doesn't work, we still have that Meat Lovers pizza in the trunk. Tommy Boy quote.
Now we're going to try to slip in as many. Jason, give us kind of an abridged how you got here, because again, we've talked about it on the show. People kind of know your story a little bit, but
Well, it started back in 1980s. I was born. So got into craft beer in college. You know, it's very similar to the story of Zach's. A fun story is that first time I had beer, I didn't like it, and it was Natty Light, as college kids do, and I tried to mix a Kool-Aid packet with Natty Light to make it taste better.
I think they do that now.
Yes, right. Like I was a visionary way back then. I should have started the brewery right then.
There is
be a millionaire.
Entire, like Bud Light series of that.
Yeah,
now.
that was me. That was all me. And I still get crap about it to this day. And I was like, you guys realize that people make billions of dollars doing exactly what I did then.
Right.
So like, you can stop making fun of me for it. Thanks. So yeah, and I did I got my undergrad and master's at UC in marketing, and I did a independent study where I did a newsletter for Listerman, and that was just my project, was making a newsletter, distribution list, how to send it out, that sort of thing. And so I did that. That's how I got my foot in the door with them. And I was in sales, cell phone sales, ended up working for Motorola, an internship. Google bought them my first day there, and so they went on a hiring freeze, and I came back to Cincinnati after my internship, and then I got a call from Chris Mitchell and said, hey, do you want to come work at the homebrew shop? We're getting ready to open this tasting room thing that you can also help sell, because he knew I was into beer and selling beer. So I think that until I left there wasn't a day that the tap room was open that I wasn't there. So I was there like the day the tap room opened, essentially filling growlers, but also stocking shelves and sweeping floors in the homebrew store. And then that was in 2013. And just kind of worked my way up from that, doing the social media, and eventually working my way up to running the business. And left there after winning tons of awards, GABF gold medals, FOBAB, best of shows, making some great beer with some great people. Left there to kind of start on my own path. The growth paths for Listerman and myself weren't where we didn't align on where we wanted to take the business. And so I was like, let's see if I can figure out my own thing. And along those paths, I stumbled along a local restaurant that also did duck pin bowling, and they wanted to open a brewery. And I said, okay, let's do this together. And it didn't work at the speed and pace that I was wanting it to work at. And so that just didn't work out, but I was still working on my business plan and all of that. And a good friend of mine named Danny Spears, who I'm sure if you're in Cincinnati beer, you probably know Danny Spears. He encouraged me to send my business plan to a banking friend of his, and because I didn't think my business plan was good enough.
Right.
And I sent it to this banker, and he calls me the next day, and he's like, I can get you the $800,000 loan tomorrow if you want it. And I was like, oh. I guess I gotta start figuring all of this stuff out now. I thought I was months away from this being ready, and so that I owe not most of it. I owe a small piece of this to Danny for that encouragement.
Shout out to Danny too. I'll put a link in the show notes. He just finished his first book, which about depression in males, which is not the road we're going to go down right now. But I'll put a link in the show notes to go buy his book on Amazon.
Yeah, great dude, funny dude too. So yeah, that started that route, and trying to find the space and assembling the team. Zach was the first team member I brought on to, I could figure everything else out, but I know how to make beer better, but I don't know how to make beer. So I knew a brewer was very important to that, and somebody that makes excellent beer is important to that. And I've been following Zach's career for a while, and unfortunately, he roots for the worst team in the world in soccer. The team that shall not be named. I'm a Tottenham fan. You could probably figure out who Zach likes.
I could not.
Well,
I would not even know where to
Don't
start.
Don't worry about it. They're not important. They're a red team, but they're
I
not
know
important.
FC Cincinnati is a soccer team. That's about as far as I go.
Yeah, perfect. They'd probably beat his team anyways because they suck. And so that's how Zach and I were keeping we talk a couple times a year, and obviously keeping track of what Labs is doing and the fun, innovative stuff they're doing. And so I reached out to him and got him on board, and then wanted to find a front of house manager. And after talking to a few people, it always came back to Mark Ferris, who, he's run tons of places, but in my knowing him, it's been Rhinehouse and Nation and Cobblestone. And he's great customer service facing, and especially in the suburbs, I think that's what you need far and away is someone that's great with customers, and he does a really great job with that. So added him to the team, and then there's a guy named Mike Georgerton who was with Queen City Restaurant Group, who ran Pontiac, Senate, all of that stuff, and we've made beers with him at Listerman before, and he's a great dude, and I always wanted to do something with him, and our schedules just kind of lined up to be able to partner up. So I assembled a really great team, and then it was all about the space. Like, where are we going to find a space to go? And I looked at some spaces, and I really wanted to be Anderson, but Anderson real estate's just so tough.
Right.
And I looked at a space that was an old pet bowl, which is actually across the street. That was about 9,000 square feet, which is a little smaller than what I wanted it to be to fit everything. I wanted a duck pen. I wanted an event space, a decent-sized brewery. So it was a little bit smaller, but I was like, I really want to be in Anderson so we can make it work. And then with the talk with the landlord there, we had talked about putting a cold box outside, and he had asked if we were going to pay additional square footage on the cold box that we're building. And I was like, no, I'm building this. Why am I paying you square? So I didn't even respond. I was like, this isn't the right space. We're going to fight over too much stuff. And then, I found this space on a random search. I was like, I'm not going to find anything. Let me search. And this came up, the game space. And it was a bit tumultuous what was happening. And I feel like I'm just talking forever about this, but I guess that's what we're here for, right?
That's right.
And so the game owner had a GM that wanted to take the game owner owned the strip mall,
right?
And they were getting ready to sell the strip mall, so he wanted to be done with the bar. The GM wanted to take over the game and put a kitchen in. They were like, let's put this on online to see if we can find anybody to take over the space. In the meantime, if we can't find anybody, you can have it to put in a kitchen. So I came in and I saw it, and I was like, okay, this is a good space. And then they're like, let's go next door. And I was like, what do you mean next door? And they're like, yeah, there's a space next door. I was like, okay, let's go next door. And it was just 5,000 square feet of just open space. I was like, oh my gosh, I have my tap room over here, and then I have the perfect space to section out for duck pen, event space, and brewery. And I was just like, this is it. And I walked away that first day. I was like, this is where we want to be. And it's, because it was a kind of a longer journey with that too, because the ownership switching hands. I was getting ready to sign a lease with the original owners, and they sold, so I had to redo that process with the new owners. And the landlords here have been great, and neighbors have been great. So I'm super excited to be here. And
talk about again the difference between coming from somewhere like Listerman, where you've got this history, there's already personalities to a lot of these beers. People have expectations when they walk in about what Listerman is, to starting something that's your own thing. You're starting from a clean slate. You're trying to show people what this place is. Talk about the difference in trying to manage both of those two types of businesses and the difference between the two.
Yeah, I think the way where you have managed expectations, it is faster, and because you have a box you have to stay in. It's like, hey, it's got to be A, B, C, D. It's got to be these things. It's always been, this is how it's going to be presented.
Right.
And then coming here it's more fun because we get to create all of that new stuff, but it's also a little bit more exhausting because there's not there. Coming up with beer names is fun, but when you have 15 new beers, it's fun when it's like once a month, once every other month. When it's 15 at once, it gets to be a little bit stressful, and we have a culture that we still don't have a name for. So that's being tapped in like a week. So that's cool. So those without those parameters and guidelines, it kind of almost leaves a little bit too much space. But in that space, it provides us the opportunity to innovate and just continue to have fun versus being kind of stuck.
Right. It seems like it would be. Well, I mean, I guess there's a stressor on both sides, but like coming in and trying to explain to everybody what this is, and again, like this is a big idea. It's very different than what Listerman was, where. I mean, it's a brewery first and foremost. It's a lot of things first. It's actually difficult to explain what that place is, but when you come in here, like everybody's coming in here and they already they're expecting something because of some kind of thing that they've formed in their own head. There's nothing that's already out there that teaches them what exactly this is, and that seems very stressful to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to execution at that point, because you have to make sure that you're executing on a food level, a beer level, a guest experience level.
It's all got to hit.
And
It's all got to hit really well from day one. Whereas if you're a brewery that has been around for a long time and you decide, hey, we're gonna add some food. If the food's kind of hit and miss at the beginning, people forgive you for that a little bit, especially people that have been coming there for a long time. It's like, oh, yeah, the food's not that great, but that's fine. That's not why we go there. Whereas there are so many people that when they walk in here, they're coming here because it's a restaurant. Somebody else is coming in here because it's for a place to go and play duck pin bowling. Other people are coming here because it's a brewery. Like, everybody just, like, it's this huge, like, crowd of opinions all at the same time coming in with some kind of expectations. And, again, stresses me out, but maybe I overthink it sometimes.
you are definitely overthinking it, or maybe not thinking enough about it. I don't know.
Let's drink another beer. What is this one here?
This is Mayor Mookin.
All right.
Mayor Mookin is our milkshake IPA. It is strawberry and vanilla, so it starts as kind of a hazy IPA, good amount of lactose. And then when we were on our trip to Chicago, we hung out with the team at Moore Brewing, and they were actually canning their milkshake IPA that day. And the way they do it is they add fruit post-ferm, and then just literally they're recircling as they're pulling to the canning line to try to keep fruit in suspension. So we kind of saw that, tasted the beer, and we're like, man, that's really great. So I kind of came back and was ready to do a milkshake after a few weeks, and I was like, I want to do this post-ferm, really get that body, really get that fruit expression. And that's kind of what we did. We added some fruit and some vanilla on top of a dry hopped IPA, and the body is killer. The fruit is great. It's maybe my favorite beer we've done so far.
I've been vocally critical about milkshake IPAs over the last few years. I don't think it's and I'll get to this beer, but I think overall the style sometimes New England IPA was kind of that way at the beginning too, where there were a lot of really messy, kind of sloppy ones that were out there, and milkshake IPA is still like that for me. Every time I get one, it's a crapshoot, and I'm going to say it's like 70-30 from ones that actually are bad versus good. There's a lot of very bad ones out there. This is not a bad one at all. When it starts out, you get that big kind of dry hopped IPA character, and then the finish on it comes, this big sweetness comes in and kind of smacks those hops away, and then you get the fruit that it finishes with, and again that body to it. It's literally, you get these two different characters that come together, this IPA and then the milkshake, and they kind of sit and balance with each other, and that's a fun beer. That's good.
Yeah, I'm not going to toot my horn, our beer's horn, other than saying it's great beer all that often. But I would venture to say that might be one of the best examples of the style that exists in the world. I'll go that far.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I have not traveled the world to experience the milkshake IPA.
You can get a lot of good ones when you're drinking Lambic in Belgium. I bet.
So you have your you can have a nice pint of Pilsner and then a milkshake IPA, I'm sure.
But it is just that perfect
great
balance of, it's not overly fruited, it's not overly hopped, it's that perfect median between the two, and you still get that lactose, that vanilla, you get everything that we tried to put in there, and it's just quite fantastic.
I mean, it makes me happy to see that people are finally figuring the style out, and that maybe at some point they'll all start tasting good.
Yeah, one of the beers Zach dropped off when we were working on this, it was actually on his birthday. We cleared this.
Oh man!
We cleared this floor that we're sitting in tile. Him, Mark, and I cleared this tile. It was the best day of my life. And he dropped off some double vanilla milkshake from Braxton that he had made. And man, I was like, I drank. I was already, I was sure he was the right guy, but I had that one. And I was like, okay.
Well, that's not fair either. Yeah. Anything is going to taste good after you've been clearing tile.
I mean, I had it like the next day, over the next couple of weeks. It was just like
any beer tastes good.
His milkshake game is up there at the very top.
It's fun to watch that starting to develop. And speaking of kind of how this industry or beers have kind of shifted and changed, like when you guys opened, or before you opened, there was a lot of, when you talk to some of the nerds and some of the people that do talk about craft breweries, people talk a lot about how there was no hype anymore in breweries. Nobody cares about new breweries. New brewery can open, and I'm not going to go there because it's not my neighborhood. And it was kind of this lackluster. People didn't seem to care about the industry the way they once did. Quickly, once you guys were announced, and I'll throw Fabled in there too, down in Kentucky, that all of a sudden people started paying attention, and people started talking about places again. People were excited to hear about a new brewery, excited to go try the new brewery. Is that just because of you guys and the personality, or is that
Yes.
just kind of is it kind of like this post-COVID kind of thing, us coming back into the world and kind of remembering what made all of this fun? Like what is it that kind of generates hype around places like that, and is it something that we're going to see more of, or is it really just you guys and the magic that you guys have?
Oh man, thank you for that. I guess
It was a question. I did not say.
it sounded like a compliment with drafting a question. Man, I think it's again.
I think people are just excited for milkshake IPAs personally.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's a testament to the team that we put together too. I think if you were to say I'm opening up my own place, then we'd have some people excited. You say Zach's opening his own place, you'd have some people excited. You have Mike Georgian opening up his own place, you have some people excited. Mark Ferris, same thing. But when you combine the four of those things together, I think that you know the food's going to be good, you know the beer's going to be good, you know the experience is going to be good. So having all of those things in one place, it just makes it makes it a little bit more exciting to go to. And then we also offer something that no other brewery offers. You have,
Right.
There's stuff to do at other breweries, right? But, not on this level, really.
Well, and that's why it's interesting to me because, and again, you guys and Fabled are the two examples I'm using because it's kind of the same time frame, and we haven't really had a big place that's opened in that same time frame that I can think of. I could be wrong on that. Somebody's going to send me a mean text or something. But there's these just extreme personalities of what these breweries are. Like you get this really, really great different thing that hasn't been done yet. And so then it becomes hard to figure out what is it that people are excited about. Is it the people? Because again, there's some names with all of that too that people do know. And you want to go down that rabbit hole? How do people get to know people anymore? Like the industry is just so different, and half the time you don't know who's making your beer. When we come in here, we know who is, but there's a lot of places in town that you don't know any of the brewers. They're just kind of tucked away in the back. They keep them locked up and don't showcase anything about the people. Where is the industry today? Where is it going? Is this kind of a sign of shifting back to some of that personality that made us fall in love with beer, or are you guys just an anomaly with it?
I think COVID, you kind of hinted at COVID, and I think part of that has something to do with this. I think with everybody home, breweries were sending beer out more. So all of a sudden in Ohio and even in Kentucky, you can get beers from Burial shipped to your door or from Other Half or whatever. And people aren't going out to breweries as much, and they realize they can get the best beers in the country anytime they want.
Right.
The excitement of local kind of, I wouldn't say died, but it definitely went down a little bit. I think what made us different and even Fabled is what you said, the people. There's local track record here from beers that I make, from things that Jason has done, Fabled with John. Everybody knows John makes great beer. So they say, okay, now maybe we can get some of that world-class stuff and support local,
Right.
as opposed to just having the stuff shipped to our door. So hopefully we can make that happen for people.
How do you feel about craft beer today versus when you guys got into the industry?
It's a loaded question.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just a lot. It's a lot different. Also, I was a lot younger, so I had a little bit more rose-tinted glasses on than I do now. 12 years into the industry.
Do you think craft beer has changed, or do you think that we've all changed as drinkers?
I think it's a combination of both. I think that people realize you can't just make beer and be successful, and so that's changed. You have to do things intentionally instead of willy-nilly. There's some breweries that get away with it. I can't even think of a name of that off the top of my head.
I probably can.
But you have to be very intentional in what you're doing. Back in the day, you could just do whatever you wanted and your beer would sell, either in the store or on tap. It just didn't matter. So you got to be more intentional, and you got to focus on quality. So that's changed a bit. And the consumer, that changes. The flavors are changing too. It was, when I started, it was all about bitter West Coast IPAs. Then we moved to fruited sours and hazy IPAs, and I think hazy IPAs are still here. And now we're kind of swinging back towards lagers. So the consumer taste preferences are changing. The consumer's also getting older, having kids. So it's just like any market. Things change, and then, at the same time they stay the same, and they'll come back. I'm sure bitter IPAs will be back in 5 years, and everybody will want 200 IBU beers too. And it's just how the life cycle of products go.
How do you bring in those new drinkers? I mean, everybody, depending on what you're reading, everybody likes to talk about the fact that people just aren't really, young drinkers aren't flocking to beer the way that we did when we were young. It's it's this mix of all this other stuff, seltzers and cocktails and spirits and things like that. How do we figure out ways to get those people here?
Well, you go to the suburbs where you have the other people here.
But does a place like this where you've got your parents bringing you since you're a little kid, you're here, you're bowling, you're eating here, this becomes a place that forms these memories for you. Does that help that, or does that hurt that? How does that, as those kids grow up, do they rebel against this thing? Oh, this is what my parents liked, or does this become that? Oh, this is comfort, and I don't know that there's actually an answer to that. But
I think if you had the answer to that, you wouldn't have a podcast and be a very rich man.
I do have a podcast, and I'm not a rich man. So
there we go. So it's just one of those things where it just depends. It depends on your relationship with your family and how you go with that. And I think that we did the duck pen for several reasons. One of the things is to insulate against that, to provide something. We have NA beers on draft. We have an NA Oktoberfest on draft right now from Untitled Art. We have duck pen here. You could come here and not even touch alcohol, not even think about alcohol.
Right.
So we've kind of tried to insulate ourselves from that sort of thing, but also provide experience to those people, because they deserve to have fun too. Just because they don't like alcohol doesn't mean that we should turn them away. And that used to be a thing too, where people would turn their nose up at people that didn't drink alcohol.
Yeah.
Back in the day, and now it's just like, well, I don't care. You're going to spend the same amount of money at my bar whether you're drinking alcohol or not. Like, it doesn't matter to me. Just come here and have a fun time with your family and friends, and don't feel like you're forced into it. I think that's a big shift in the industry as well.
Do people when they come in here, what is does the average person get it that it's a brewery, that the beer is made here, that's kind of in a lot of ways the soul of what kind of makes this all come together? Or are there a lot of people that come in here and just again, maybe they're not ordering beer, they're in here because they want to grab some food? What is that breakdown for you guys? Can you tell?
I would say it's probably 70-30 on people that know we're a brewery versus don't know we're a brewery. And they can tell because they'll ask at the bar,
Right.
Oh, you guys make your own beers here?
Why do you guys sell all this one brewery's beer?
Yeah. Well, our beers doesn't say Wandering Monsters on the tap list 10 times, so
Right.
maybe that's why they're confused on it. And it's funny because Untapped is whatever, but anyway, we brought in, when we opened, we were a little short on beer, so we brought in other half IPA to put on tap because we were out of IPA, and also because I want to drink other half because it's amazing. And we had 3 or 4 people check into Wandering Monsters Broccoli. We had Wandering Monsters Other Half Broccoli was the name of the beer, because we had it on the board as Other Half Broccoli.
But that makes it even stranger to me, because these are people that have Untapped.
Exactly.
That you think get it, but then don't.
Exactly. Right. So it's just you think you can do everything to say that you are what you are, and we want to be known as Wandering Monsters, not necessarily Wandering Monsters Brewing Company. That's obviously a big part of what we do, but it's the whole package. It's not just focusing on the one thing. So, so as long as they're having a good time here, I guess.
I think for me, I think emphasizing that it's a brewery is important in my head, because it helps kind of shift this culture around drinking and this bigger problem that I think exists in the United States about alcohol. That we're getting close to that point where it's becoming more normal, and people are understanding of the different levels of what drinking means to different types of people. And so when you have a place that oh yeah, I go there all the time, it's a brewery. I don't drink the beer, but I go there all the time. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's really important to kind of shift this culture around what it means to make alcohol in the United States, personally. But who knows? Everything. I get so confused by all of this anymore, and like the whole seltzer thing that was going on for so long didn't help at all. Trying to understand like why people are drinking what they're drinking, and I don't know if people even know why they're drinking what they're drinking. I feel that even like stronger today than I did then, and that concerns me a little bit. Just how do you educate people? How do you keep kind of pushing this idea forward that everything has like a purpose and a reason, and like that, not that seltzer is evil, but when you're drinking seltzer, you should know why you're drinking. You should enjoy it. Like you shouldn't just be drinking it because that's the option that you have that is farthest away from the thing that you don't like. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's not really a question.
Should I close this brewery down now, man? You're really bumming me out about these things.
No, but I think the breweries are the important like piece of it. Of like when you walk in somewhere and it's like, oh, I'm just here for some barbecue. I'm not gonna get a beer. But then halfway through your meal, you're curious. And you're like, hey, I only drink Bud Light, and do you guys have something that's like that? And then the conversation starts, but that person, if it was just a brewery that was just cranking out a bunch of beer, they wouldn't even walk in the door like, oh no, I'm a Bud Light drinker. I don't go there. I'm gonna go to the bar down the street. I don't drink that stuff. But now it gets them in the door, it gets the conversation started, it gets people talking about it. So that's why the breweries get me excited, because there's conversations happening. There's not conversations at Applebee's. If you yes, you can get a truth on tap, but you're
23-ounce truth.
Yeah, it's a big old Brutus of truth. Do you think? Well, we won't go there. What gets you excited about craft beer? We'll try to spin it more positive. Like, what is it right now that is like, you try milkshake IPAs like this that are leaps and bounds above what people were doing a couple years ago. What other things are out there that it's like, oh my God, this is cool, like that somebody's doing this, or that this is becoming popular, or that people are requesting this, or what gets you excited?
A lot of things get me excited about craft beer, and we talk a lot about all the things that Wandering Monsters brings to its consumers, between the food, the duck pen, the experience overall. And I honestly, just seeing people drink my beer is exciting enough for me. And sure, 50% of what we're selling is a Wisconsin ale that is light and has some flavor, but it's not a milkshake IPA. It's not a big imperial stout. But people are happy, so I'm happy. So I'm happy with that. But I like that we can do that. We can do it well. We can satiate that portion of our customer base, and then also do things like a milkshake IPA or fruited sour, or like our imperial stout coming out in a couple weeks. Like that's gonna make another group happy, the people that are maybe more like me, right. Who are looking for something that's bold in flavor and something unique and exciting, and we can kind of do the best of both worlds and somehow make a living off of it.
Right.
To me, I would say the constant learning that continues to happen. I've been in this for a long time, and it's still stuff. I learn new stuff almost daily. We are in the process of making a beer with WeldWorks right now. I'm making a stout. We're brewing it next week.
Dropping all the big names.
Well, I could have said an unnamed brewery, because there's a point to this. We're in an email chain about stouts. And
God, that's got to be the nerdiest email chain ever.
I'm telling you. And Skip, their head brewer, is just kind of, and Zach are talking the process. And I've worked with some great stout brewers, Jared at Bolero Snort and John Ewers at Fabled, and there's stuff that he's driving. Maybe they know that now. Maybe it's a new process. I don't know. But they're like, I learned 5 or 6 things in one email that he sent about stouts, and my mind was just kind of blown. And I was like, I've been around some excellent stouts and some excellent stout brewers, and I still didn't know all of this stuff. So there's just always more knowledge to be gained and more information to share, and I feel that gets me pretty excited.
Kind of piggybacking on that idea, though, like I feel like, and this is not true for you guys, and for a lot of other places that I think I see kind of pushing some of the boundaries of some of that stuff, but as an industry, like I think the idea of like the collaboration beers and stuff like that is not what it used to be. And I feel like that is the thing that kind of starts pushing some of those the knowledge around and gets people trying new things and people seeing new things. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but again, that starts to make me feel negative about the industry because nobody else is I shouldn't say nobody else because again, there are lots of places that are all into that now. But again, COVID kind of kicked collaborations right in the nuts and told people that they can't do it anymore, and it hasn't come back the way it was kind of before that.
Yeah, and I think that's all about the individual breweries themselves too. I want to be there. I want to brew. I want to see how you're operating. I want to see how your back of house is working, how your front of house works. I want to see how your draft system looks. I want to talk to you about your hop selection. I want to be there and spend the whole day just learning and drinking. My wife says I just go do this to drink, but it's really about the learning. And so that it's just all about what you want to get out of the collaboration. If you just want to slap your name on a brew with another brewery and sell some beer, that's cool. I'm not going to hate on it, but for us, it's very important that we're there, we're brewing, and we're just a part of that day with them because it's all about what can we take from here back that makes us more successful, that helps our employees, that helps our customers, and ends up with the best guest experience we can have. So it's just that's the way we look at collaborations. What we're doing it a little bit differently, where we brew a beer ahead of time with a recipe. They come in and we tap that beer so they can drink a beer together. It's very rare for a collaborating brewery to drink that beer on tap when they're at the brewery. If you're out of town, in town obviously is different, and then when they're here, brew another one. So we are doing the virtual one at least for one, but getting the in-person one done separately so we can extract as much knowledge and have a good time. That's at the end of the day.
There's that balance between the two of yes, you're getting something educational out of this and you're sharing knowledge. It's still beer at the end of the day. There's still that fun side of it of we like to sit around and drink beer together. That's what gets us all into it, and that's what kind of keeps us going a lot of days too. Let's drink another beer.
This one is Fogbringer.
So this one, what is the style here?
New England IPA.
Yeah, Fogbringer became kind of a series for us. Hazy IPA is something that obviously we're passionate about, something I did a lot at Labs and something that Listerman's always done. And we basically, I brewed one before we opened, split it into two, and we're like, okay, well, we have two beers now. Let's just turn this into a series where we're kind of experimenting with the style and trying different hop combinations using different processes or different yeasts. This is the third one out. I am trying to remember what is even in it at this point, but man, I don't remember. But it is a double dry hopped IPA with
the base beer itself stays the same, and then the hops change.
Yeah, grist stays the same. The hop process might change. I'm brewing. I have one in a tank right now, number 4, that got Salvo in the Whirlpool, which is a different hop product.
Right.
But generally, yeah, it's kind of the same base, and then we play with the hops a little bit differently. Oh, thanks for pulling that up. Citra Strata Eldorado and the double dry hopping.
You not only pulled it up, you just pulled it up on Untapped. You didn't.
We have sheets that we share.
It's
just like, man, I have to go through all of these things to find it. We just copy and paste the description. That's what we use Untapped for too. It's just for us.
It's a good shout out to Untapped that they've evidently still create
for something.
Good enough product.
Don't even get us started.
I mean, his Untapped does it still is the negativity around Untapped and the way people rate things, is that still as big of an issue now as it was? Do people still care about what the rating is on Untapped?
Oh yeah.
I would say
85% of our customers don't, but that 15, the people that are talking about craft beer, it absolutely matters. It matters so much that there's breweries that rate their own beers 5 stars to bring it up. So obviously they think that it matters enough to do it. So it's a thing, and it's dumb.
Do you see people sit down and they're pulling up Untapped and they're actually choosing what they drink based off of the Untapped scores?
I don't know about that, but I think that's more like it's more of a which place am I going to go to?
Okay.
Versus what the actual beer and what beer. Once they're here, it doesn't really matter from a business standpoint what beer they get. Right, they're here, they're going to try some of our great beers on draft. But I think it's more of a which place should I go? If I'm in this area and there's 4 places I'm on Untapped, I'm going to look at the overall brewery score and see, look at that to see who has the best beers.
Right. That's depressing. It's just like I like Untapped, and I like seeing what other people think about beers, but it's always like after I'm drinking the beer, like that's when I'm pulling stuff up. All right, what does everybody else think about this? And like I'm like, all right, let me. It's like when you're not sitting with your friends and drinking with them, like it gives you other people to kind of see their opinions and their thoughts about something. But
yeah, I mean that's how I learned to taste beer. Beer Advocate. I would drink a beer and read reviews and be like, "What am I tasting?" Oh, that is like, "Oh yeah, that's what this is."
Yeah, what is that thing?
Picked out flavor characteristics. Well, on tap you don't have to type anything, so it's a little less useful for that.
Yeah, it's almost hard now to like find people that have written something about the beer or something that's actually about the beer. Like usually it's just some kind of random.
Yeah, it's not great for feedback. You go and it's you get 30 review or 30 4 cap reviews, and like one person will write something, and half the time it doesn't even have to do with the beer, and you're like, okay, so like I don't know what you got out of it. Are you getting what I'm getting? Or are you getting what I was hoping you would get? And in the end, it's just a number.
How do you do that then? How do you find that valuable feedback from people? Like how do you find people that you trust their feedback? How do you get it? How do you do that?
It's a lot of the bar staff and what we're hearing from the guests that are actually here that we get a lot of feedback from that. Yeah. You
just trust like a random guest that's sitting there, like.
No, I mean, it's just like any feedback. You'll know whether it's valid or not when you hear it. And if they say something about a beer, you go taste it and be like, oh, I could see that. How do we make that better? Or no, that person doesn't know what they're talking about.
Right.
That's just how it is. You get a job performance review and you're like, it's the same thing. Yeah. This is valid. This isn't. You can figure that out for yourself.
The only reviews I get for my job performance now are from my wife, and I don't trust any of them. She just says I go drink too much.
What does she know?
I'm working. What about like, let's other beverages. So I kind of mentioned it earlier. Seltzer, obviously, was a thing. Cocktails and stuff like that. How does that shape how you guys do things on the brewery side, or does it? Like, do you see what people are kind of drink? The people that aren't drinking beer, do you see what they're drinking and kind of use that as inspiration, as kind of maybe flavor profiles or something? Is any of that going on?
I don't think so.
Should it?
Well, we're a little bit different than a lot of breweries in when we don't distribute,
right.
And that's going to be my goal for as long as I can hold on to that dream of mine. We'll see how. Hopefully, it's forever. And so we don't have to cater to that because
that almost makes me feel like you should cater to it more.
But because we have a full bar here, so if you want a cocktail, you just come here and get a cocktail.
Right.
We don't need to make a beer that tastes like a cocktail. You can just get the real thing here. We don't need to make a seltzer. We'll buy an untitled hard seltzer that's amazing, and just serve that on draft here. That's. Ask me again when I want to do a pina colada beer in the summer. And then if I reimagine that, but we kind of talked about RTDs the last time we spoke too. It's like we don't need to carry them; we have them here. They're ready to drink in the liquor bottles that we make. So we're just a little bit different than other breweries would be that don't have that. Like, hey, I want to, I don't know, I don't even know mixed drinks. I'll say pina colada again. Oh, we got this one right here for you. It's kind of similar to that, but we can just make you one.
Pina colada is probably the worst example because it's probably like the perfect thing to make into a beer.
Yes, I know, and it's also like my favorite mixed drink. So it's like, oh, yeah.
My mind just keeps going to like this idea of like converting drinkers, which maybe that's not the right way to think anymore. Maybe we should just stop trying to win that way. But like when somebody comes in and orders a cocktail, I just want to know why they ordered that cocktail. Is it just because they wanted something boozy? Was it because they like these flavors are something that is actually resonating with them, which then is okay. So how do we give them that as beer people? And like that's I just want everybody to be drinking beer, and I don't know if that's possible. Should we give up on that?
You should give up on that.
I can't. I
gave up on
There's
that.
There's a beer for everybody.
The place I worked at after Listerman kind of beat that into me with how much volume they sold of non-beer things and how many people came in because they had it. So it was just kind of like, if we're going to be this neighborhood place that's for everybody and for families, mom, dad wants a bourbon or vodka soda that night, we have to be that place to sell it to them, or they'll go somebody else. So, it's just kind of, that dream has died for me. And I think it's for the better. I don't think everybody needs to drink a beer. I think as long as you're doing what you enjoy and drinking what you enjoy, then, that's good too. Just keep drinking. Not in a safe way. I meant like keep enjoying alcoholic beverages. Yes. Don't move away from alcohol, because I think that's a whole different, scarier thing if people are moving to like THC and that sort of stuff that's coming for the alcohol business than just beer.
Right. So if you recognize that there are people who just are going to be spirits people, why not add distilling into what you do? Like, why not kind of start branching into that as a manufacturer?
You just want to throw all this extra
it's just
stuff
a question.
on
It's just a question.
A, space and capital. Well, A, space, B, capital.
Here's the whole joke of all of this. The reason I have to talk about it is because so many people are drinking other things, so my podcast has to be about everything.
Space and capital are big on that, and it takes a lot of money to start up a distillery, because bourbon takes 4 years, and that's where the real money is, and that's where I would want to make anyways. So, and then I'm a big believer on, if somebody makes it really well and it's not that expensive, then it's going to cost you more money to do it less well. Mm-hmm. Tito's, for example, great vodka. Vodka we would make would not be as good as Tito's, and probably cost us more to make than we can buy a Tito's. So let's just keep buying Tito's. I
argue that sometimes with some breweries where they'll put a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of money into making, we'll say, a light American lager, and they work really hard to do that, to try to make a beer that people that like Bud Light will drink. And the mindset kind of shifts there too, of if everybody's asking for Bud Light and you can't make a beer that's better than Bud Light or cheaper than Bud Light, why don't you just put Bud Light on tap and just call it a day, if that's what you're trying to do? And there's a whole rabbit hole you go down there, a whole at some point, a lot of these beer styles that people are trying to make, there's already a beer out there that is the defined version of that style. If you want to make a great Pilsner, there is great Pilsner out there. Most people are not going to make a beer that's better than that. How do you, where is that line to say that we can do this better, or we accept that we can't?
It's at the liquor line. That's where it's at.
That's
I think
that is a fair
beer,
answer.
The beer customers are looking for variety. They come in every day like, what's new? What can I have that I didn't have last time I was here? And if every brewery and bar in the city only sold Pilsner Urquell, I bet they're not going to drink nearly as much Pilsner as if every third brewery also had a Pilsner on,
right, that
they made in-house. And from my side of things, I want to brew a good Pilsner because I love Pilsner, and I want the challenge of making something that is at least as close to as good as that as I can, and
right,
hopefully people will enjoy it as much as I do. And I want to keep my job. But yeah, I think you joke, but I think the line is liquor. I think there's so much more involved there, and right now, it's just a one-man show back here. So,
but it is I would love now to go sit down with the distillery and ask that same question of if that Tito's is out there, why? I mean, I guess vodka is just the easiest thing to make, probably, so that's why you do it. But if you know that everybody's ordering some kind of product that's on the shelf, why are you shifting your focus into that? Why is that the thing that you're shooting for?
Well, they might think that they make a better version of Tito's, and I'm sure people think they make better versions of Pilsner Urquell, and that's why you don't start out making a Pilsner thinking you're going to make a worse Pilsner than Pilsner Urquell, right? You're not going to be like, this one's going to be worse than this beer.
It's also kind of crazy to think you're going to do better. You might do your kind of your version of something like that, but it's kind of crazy to think you do better, right?
You got to shoot for the moon, and if you didn't miss, you land amongst the stars, right?
I guess. There are just some beers that I think maybe I don't know. What do you guys, if it's not beer that you make, what do you guys like to drink? How do you what's in your fridge?
Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. pretty much all the time. That's what I drink at home. I make drinks for my wife, which is fun, but I don't drink them myself. So usually it's Sierra Nevada Pale Ale or some bourbon.
Yeah, I drink. I'm a haze boy, so drink a lot of New England IPAs. I order a lot of beer.
That is shocking. I never would have guessed.
I drink a lot of Jason's hazy IPAs that he orders.
Yeah.
Got too many of these. Need some more room.
Yeah, and I drink seltzers. I still drink seltzers and bourbon. That's what I'm drinking.
Does it get you excited the same way that beer did? Like when even bourbon. Like, is bourbon still as exciting as maybe craft beer was kind of at the beginning?
I never get the good stuff, so I don't know.
What is the good stuff? I don't even
Stuff
understand that
that
anymore.
you can't get. If you can get it, if you see it on the shelf, it's not the good stuff. Apparently, that's the way bourbon is these days, I guess.
One of my clients for the business side of my life is Revival down in Covington. Shout out to Revival, incredible business. If you guys haven't been there, go there. But they only sell vintage bourbon because of the great laws of Kentucky. And so I've kind of got this weird skewed version of bourbon in my head now of what makes good bourbon and not good bourbon.
That's probably all good bourbon, but you cannot buy that for home consumption, I would imagine.
Yes, you can. That's the brilliance of Kentucky.
Okay.
It's the only state where you can do that. Maybe D.C. I don't know. But yeah, you can just go in and buy old bourbon as long as it's sealed. They can buy it from.
Sure.
They can buy it from people and then resell it. It's cool stuff.
Yeah.
Go to
I
Revival
understand now.
Let's drink another beer because I say we're out of our time is running up, but it's the internet.
We haven't even eaten yet.
There's not really rules.
We haven't even eaten yet.
Are we eating on the show?
I mean, it's up to you. It's your show.
I mean, we could talk about the food, but eating on the show never tends to be good listening. This is great. Let's talk about this beer and then let's talk about the food.
Sure.
What is this one?
What is that one?
What does it look like?
I believe that's our Untitled Art collab.
That's what it looks like.
It's a very accurate description of what I wrote down there.
Yeah, so we went up to Wisconsin in the spring and hung out with Levi and Sam and the guys up at Untitled Art. We came up with an idea for a beer that they were going to brew, and then they got a bit backed up. So I was like, you know what, we'll do it here. We did a small version here. And what it is it's a kettle sour, kind of a smoothie sour with raspberry lemonade. So raspberry, and we use Sicilian lemon puree, which kind of brings that almost like frozen lemonade aspect that I love. Very fruity, very tart.
See, I don't get as much tartness as I was expecting.
See,
like
I've heard that. Like, I think Mark said the same thing. He was like, I don't think it's that tart. And I was like, man, I feel like the lemon cuts it so much that it's just like acid on my tongue. But I enjoy it a lot. Maybe the sweetness of the fruit really kind of balances that as well. But kind of a fun beer that I think they're going to do a big batch of at some point.
That reminds me of going back to the cocktail discussion and beers that are kind of cocktail inspired or not. This reminds me of something that a cocktail drinker would really enjoy in a beer if they want to drink a beer. This is really good. I like that a lot. You get all of the kind of that berry kind of flavor comes through in the beginning, and then that lemon just cuts it right off and just kind
it's
of
a very
gives
sharp
it
finish, which is kind of cool.
That's a fun beer. I like that. Well done.
Thanks. We also have a special one to pull out from the fridge too, so that's the second to last.
Oh
one.
yeah, we got to talk about that too. Oh, 'cause we got to talk about other things. There's a lot of things that we haven't talked about. You guys package beer. You package beer in a weird way, though. You decided that you were going to go with these
classic. We say classic.
16.9 ounce bottles. Is that right? 500 milliliters.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the decision to go that, which we probably talked about the last time we were here. But talk about the decision to go that way versus 4 packs of 16 ounce cans, like everybody likes to do these days. Talk about how you went that way, why you went that way.
Sure. There's a whole bunch of reasons. Which most things come back to capital. Canning, a nice canning line's 50 to 70 grand. This bottling line was like 12, and it does a great job for what we needed to do. So that was a big play. That made me consider it. Like, this, because I was thinking, they're the same price. It's obviously going to be cans, but then I found someone using the type of, I don't even know what it's called. Do you know what it's called?
What, the line?
Yeah.
The Fillmore?
Fillmore. Using a Fillmore in another brewery, again on a collab, and I was like, what's this? It costs $12 grand, cool. And then, one day I was in talking to Ben at Cappy's, and if you've ever gone to talk to Ben at Cappy's, you know how long those conversations
Yes.
are. Shout out to Ben. What's up, Ben? And I was looking at his cooler there, and it is literally all just aluminum, except for one beer. And I know you know what this is because of the last time. But,
Yeah.
but Main Lunch was like the one shining bottle in this whole thing, and it just immediately stuck out to that. And I was thinking if we ever need to get into distribution, then we will be able to at least stand out on the shelves. If at very least have someone pick up our bottle and see what it is, because it looks so different than everything else on the shelf. And then we are also able to price it better. It's a $4 bottle to go home. It's a pint of beer to take home with you. You're having dinner. You want one more, but you got to go home and put the kids to bed or something. Well, you can grab a pint to go for $4 and go home and enjoy it when you're home. So it's a reasonably packaged single bottle that I'm hoping people enjoy. And it's also, I love going over to Europe, and this is the style of bottle they use in Europe. And so walking down a street, looking at some street art or something, and they open carries a thing there. So you grab a bottle from a bottle shop, and they pop it open for you, and you go on your way. And it's this style of bottle, so it has a bit of nostalgia and fun for me too.
I like them. It is definitely distinct compared to what everybody else is doing these days, which is funny to me to watch kind of that shift and that change going back and forth. What has been the reaction from people? Like,
people have loved it. They said, we're never buying another can. We're only buying these bottles.
How do you open these again? Is that
Just use your teeth. You'll be fine.
You guys have cooler full of kind of the core stuff, the things that people have been drinking on tap that they want to take home with them, but you're doing your first kind of big release of a quote-unquote special bottle. They're all special in their own way.
They're all special.
I do love the artwork on this.
Stout
one.
release.
Talk about the beer a little bit and what people can expect.
Sure. Viator Obscura is kind of our base pastry stout. So when we first opened up, I had brewed a batch, and it takes forever. But it got to a good spot. We filled some barrels, and we had a few kegs left. So we released a version on draft that got a condition on caramel and chocolate or cocoa nibs. And that beer went really fast. I think we went through 3 half barrels in like a week and a half. And I was like, that's not really what our customer base is. We didn't think, we're selling a bunch of blonde ale. But it took off pretty, got a little bit of following, had a lot of people asking when it was coming back, and we just didn't have any beer. It was all in barrels. So we brewed another batch, put most of that in barrels. But this is upcoming releases, that same base beer, but with toasted marshmallow and chocolate. It's delicious. It's sweet. It's it's delicate. It's got that kind of like warming booziness, but not like hot on your tongue. It's very, I don't know. I'm excited about it. I think the body is really big, and it's just, I'm really happy with this beer, and I think the label is pretty sick.
I love the label. You guys probably can't. I know you can't see it because my camera overheated and it's not recording on that side anymore. So, but the label is it's all just kind of what do I call the non-metallic? It's all not metallic except for the little monster kind of walking through the woods, and he just kind of pops like the moon is shining on him, and he just it's beautiful. When is this being released? What's the date?
Saturday, September 16th.
So when you are listening to this, if you're listening to it when it drops, it is this coming Saturday. Yeah, it's this Saturday. This Saturday, be here. If you're listening to it after that, sorry, you missed out. But pay attention to social media for next time they release a bottle, because there will be plenty more fun things, I assume, like this coming down the pike. You guys mentioned putting a lot of things in barrels, so we know that there's stuff coming, and it's probably the best place to find it timely instead of listening to podcasts to get things when they release. Let's talk about the food before we wrap things up. Barbecue is kind of the focus of. I mean, there's some other things that I don't think technically fall into the barbecue realm, but talk about what the menu looks like, what people can expect when they walk in, and you guys are now open for lunch, which I assume that a lot of people in this area are really digging.
Yeah. So when we were looking at what food to put in here, I kind of looked at the market to see what was available. We knew we weren't going to do a chicken tender place because there's too many of those around here.
There's a weird number of chicken places over here.
Some could say the right amount.
Anderson loves chicken.
Hashtag Anderson loves chicken. And so, there wasn't really a barbecue place. Sweets and Meats had just closed to focus on catering. They're not even, they're in Mount Washington, which is in Anderson. It was a weird map thing. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, and looking at, what Mike's skill set was. He opened Pontiac, so he's got some barbecue knowledge, and B, kind of looking at the space we have for the kitchen. We don't have the biggest space, and we can put that smoker outside to do most of our cooking outside. So it was kind of a culmination of those things.
Do you have to pay extra square footage to have the smoker outside?
We have a great landlord that does
nice.
not charge us the extra square footage to put it outside. So, so that's kind of why. And I think we got a pit master named Melvin who's been amazing. He does great work back there, and people have seemed to have been really digging the food. Yeah. Which is also crazy that I just talked about how great the barbecue is, and oftentimes our smash burger will outsell
That's what
everything.
I've heard more about the smash burger than I think anything else from people telling me what they had.
It's a great smash burger, and I guess if you don't want smoked food, you don't want smoke. That's why we have it. If to give you something that isn't smoked, and it's kind of a safe place from smoke, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's also really good.
Kind of fits into the whole vibe of trying to find something that everybody is happy with, and like there's a lot of barbecue places that you walk into that don't really have that option for somebody that doesn't want barbecue.
Right.
Which I don't understand that why you wouldn't want barbecue, but whatever. Smash burgers are good too. But it gives that thing that everybody can walk in here and just be happy and get that thing that brings them joy. And I think you guys
that's what we're all about.
I think you guys are nailing it. This place makes me happy to see that there are still people out there that get it, that understand kind of how to keep moving forward into craft beer without ignoring the stuff that made it what it was in the first place. So keep up the good work. Is there anything you want people to know that you think they don't know?
Oktoberfest.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about
Oktoberfest. It's gonna.
I'm walking out the door with several bottles of Oktoberfest because it makes its way into this year's Oktoberfest quest since it's in packaging.
Because bottles are cool.
But it is the only bottle in this year's Oktoberfest quest.
It'll stand tall amongst its competitors.
I don't know where it's gonna go in my fridge because my fridge is so packed full of things. Cans are easy, you can stack them, and they just fit in these little nooks and crannies. Those are going to have to sit right in the middle, right in front and center. Oh, I get it now. But we will definitely talk about it. I actually assume that it will probably be competing in round 1 this weekend, so there's no way I'm going to be able to wait that long. It'll probably be this week sometime. What is today? We're recording this on Thursday. This airs on Monday. Yeah, it'll probably be tonight on the Weekly Pint is what I'm guessing. It'll compete against somebody. Don't know who. Yeah, I should give you a list of the people that are still waiting to compete, and maybe you can pick your own competitor.
That's all right.
No,
when do we get
fair.
our trophy?
You can't do that. You got to win. It's the golden gnome. There is a trophy. It is.
Can't wait. We'll put it above our bar.
I finished building the trophy this weekend. I have to check and make sure everything is dry and it's not falling apart. But there will be a live event somewhere. I'm not. We'll see where it is. We're not ready to talk about the live event yet, but there will be a live event where the finals take place. There will be 5 people in the finals because we couldn't do a final 4 because of how many Oktoberfest beers there are. So I came out to the final 5, I think. And we'll crown a winner that night live. Blind tasting between those final 5. So there's some tough competition. I can guarantee it won't be BJ's. That beer was terrible. Shout out to BJ's for making a terrible Oktoberfest beer.
Is that Miller?
No, they have their own brewery. Yeah, they have like 3 or 4 breweries around the country.
Oh, okay.
That they are theirs. As far as I know, they're theirs.
Theirs.
Yeah, no, they're definitely theirs. They're a craft brewery. Yeah, they're on the list. They're a craft brewery.
Okay.
The beer's terrible.
I'll take it back.
They shouldn't be a craft brewery. The beer's terrible. Oh, that's the wrong button. Shit. We will be back next week, I believe. Do what?
You said you want to know what's coming up. I haven't even talked about it. What's coming up?
I didn't ask what was coming up, but I could.
Yeah. He said, what are you guys excited about or something? And then we got...
I said, what do you want people to know that you think they don't know?
Yeah. There's stuff people need to know.
We'll fix it. We'll edit it. It's the internet.
It's the internet.
What?
Well, I just didn't know if you wanted to lead back in with a question. Or
so
if you were gonna
guys, is there
re-edit.
anything that you want people to know that you think they don't know?
Zach, I don't know if you want to talk about some of our exciting collabs that we have coming up.
Sure. I'll preface this by saying I love collabs. It's not something that we did at Braxton very often, or if we did, it was usually with a business, which
Right.
worked out well for them. But I am loving getting to meet all these new people that have been friends with
My name's Jason.
I don't know why they're friends with Jason, but it's working out great for me. So, we started out with Trips to Microphone and Untitled and some others. But
Don't
we're
you forget Phase 3.
in Phase 3. Wouldn't want to miss that one. But we are brewing a beer with Fremont tomorrow, and they're going to come out in a few weeks, and we're going to brew something for barrels when they're here, I believe.
There's a little bit more to that one than Zach's letting on. So the head brewer, lead brewer at Fremont, and I went to high school together, and he tutored me in geometry, and we played soccer together for 3 years there. So we've been talking about making beer forever. He's been around the world making beer, and he's coming home for his sister's wedding. So we're brewing a double IPA Friday, and then he's going to be here for the wedding and brew a dark beer for us for barrels. But when he's here for the wedding, we're going to tap the double IPA
Right.
so he can drink it with his family, and it's kind of like a really cool,
That's cool.
and fun thing that we're doing. And I'm just so very excited to get to brew with Uni, and it's been way too long. But yeah. So
But that's what the collaborations like we kind of talked about it a little bit before about the two different sides of it of like trying to do something where everybody's learning from each other and you're doing this educational thing and but then like just that other side of just getting together with people in the industry that you sometimes don't get to hang out with when you want to because everybody's busy, and like just getting together and making something and then drinking something together, like it's
and the flip side is that we're combining both because there's a couple of hop products that we're using that you haven't used before, right?
Yeah, we're doing Salvo again. So I did use it once, but I only used it because it was their suggestion. I was like, well, I want to put this in a beer before we do theirs, so I can kind of get a feel for how to use it and what it's going to taste like. So we're using some Salvo in the Whirlpool. We're using some Cryo, which something we've used before, but a couple of cool advanced hop products that'll add some depth, but also maybe help with some yield too on something this big. I think
Right.
would be nice. And we're using Nectaron, which I haven't used yet, so I'm excited for that. Nectaron hops. So the Fremont collab, and then we got Weldworks collab next week. We're brewing this like triple mash, reiterated mash stout.
What's a reiterated mash?
Reiterated mash. So what we're doing.
See, educational and fun.
Trying to think of a good joke here about.
So basically, I'm going to do a single mash. I'm going to run off all of that liquor, and then I'm going to grain out, and then I'm going to mash again. But instead of using city water for that mash, I use the mash from the runoff.
Okay.
So that'll get us a huge boost in gravity. We're going to run that then off into the kettle, and we're going to boil overnight. And then the next morning, I'll brew a third mash with just regular city water and run off into that so we get back to a full kettle volume and boil a little bit more and hopefully end up with something like really thick and really
like a big beer.
intense and fun. Yeah. Something that's going to probably be in barrels for like the rest of my life. And then I think we're talking with Jared at Bolero Snort about doing something up there. I don't know what else is even in the timeline there. I get them all
I think
mixed up.
those three are the ones that are coming up. Can't really plan that. And we're going to
We're
going to Weldworks in
Yeah,
October.
we're going out to Denver. Going to do something with Weldworks out there, and maybe a couple other breweries that we've been chatting with. So
Shout out to Sam.
Yeah, we're going to do something with Four Noses because we both know Sam, who's out there these
Sam
days.
Huckaway, previous of
So-
Ryan Geist and like half the breweries.
Yeah, and Columbus and someone else downtown.
the one right by Ryan Geist.
Yeah, he was at Northern
can't-
Row for
Northern
Northern
Row,
Row.
that's it,
There
yep.
it is. Yeah, and West Side. He was there for a little while. So
Again, that whole idea of just like being with people in the industry that you know are friends with or that you want to hang out with, like I think it's so important to the beer side of things. And it breaks my heart that it's kind of fallen out of commonplace.
We're
in the
bringing it
last few
back.
years. Well, I think other people are too. Like I think I hopefully it's going to become more normal, but. It's what I love. I love the community of it and the all of that, man. It's good. You guys are doing a good job. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thanks.
Keep up the great work. Is there anything else that you want people to know that you think they don't know about Wandering Monsters?
I think we're good this time. Thank you.
As I'm sure you saw on your Instagram feeds or wherever I'm going to post it, I had lunch here and it was probably really delicious. So
Can't edit that one out now.
Go back and check that one out. We'll be back next week. I think we're sitting down with Streetside talking about their anniversary next week, I believe. If my schedule is messed up in my head, don't hold me to it. But we'll be with somebody, and you can support the show by going to thegnarlygnome.com/support. Share with your friends. All of those things that I'm supposed to tell you at the end of the show that I always forget to do. Just do them. Show notes. Look in the show notes. Cincy Brewcast, the voice of Cincy Craft.